can be deepened. There's been issues around the public space calling for more accountability and responsibility from the people that are sworn to protect our democracy and also provide dividends of same for all. It's my pleasure to have you join us today on the show. It's a Thursday, the last English episode of the show for the week. So you know that from Friday is always the Yoruba version. Yes, it's a pleasure to have you join us. If you're meeting me for the very first time or you're joining us for the very first time, my name is Okweyemi Akin, and every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. we take you through the world of politics, current affairs, social conversation, especially as we continue to demand for good governance and more defined democracy from the system. So we have a big guest today. I'm sure a lot of people are expecting to have Mr. Miwa Adeyemi, our usual guest, the immediate past chief political editor of Guardian newspaper. But today, well, sometimes I wonder how many times or how many hours of a day he gets to sleep. Talking about my guest. Today is joining one marathon somewhere. Tomorrow is in Abuja protesting. The next one is appearing in court on the invitation of maybe the Inspector General of Police or against the President. The next one is speaking about against bad governance. And I made reference to him on Tuesday. I didn't even know he was going to join us today. And I said, you have to count your fingers to know how many politicians we have alive today that are led protest or participated in protest as much as my guest has been. He's always at that front space. And of course, he's a politician, he's a publisher, human rights activist, he's a lecturer as well. And of course, the 2019 and 2023 presidential candidate of African Action Congress. Comrade Sowore is live with us on the show today. For the next 50-55 minutes or thereabouts, we'll dig deep into all of these things. Good to have you join us, comrade. It's always a pleasure every time you squeeze time to be with us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's probably the first time this year.
Yeah.
So it's in order to say
Happy New Year. It's in order. So before we, maybe the face will change and the voice will change. How do you rest? Let me put it that way. Day before yesterday, you were at the National Assembly Complex. 2 days prior, you were addressing some people somewhere. A week ago, you were participating in a marathon. How do you manage 24 hours? Let me put it that way.
It's time management. If you manage your time very well, you can put in a lot. And it's part of why you increase the stamina by exercising a lot. So It's just that it requires certain parameters put in place, and some of it is characteristic of the leaders themselves. Some of them are environmental, some of them are circumstantial, but there are some that within their own political space, especially when you have chosen democracy. Even when the choice is not democracy, you still have a right to be governed by whomever is occupying the position of leadership. Because position of leadership, whether it's in a democracy or a monarchy, requires that the leaders are responsible to you in a lot of ways. So, what is then the answer that I found a long time? That leadership is vision, it's mission, it's commitment, it's sacrifice. And the moment you have all those elements in place, you are on the right path to it. But in our own part of the world, where standards are bad or good enough, I mean, on the spectrum of bad, it's like a revolving door, in my view. That leaders just we can't get it right because we choose not to get it right, not because we can't get it right. Because getting it right is actually simple. If we all, in our great numbers, decide to be on the right side of history by taking a position today that certain things will not repeat itself in our lives, that will no longer, it's not even voting. You can vote for an idiot, but you don't have a duty to let the idiot continue to occupy it the moment you are clear about it. So, because people say sometimes that, the number of years you have after you voted for an idiot is 4 years. No, you don't. You can decide to revolt against
in a month.
No, that same hour that is sworn in. You see, we don't want you. If you look outside of the window and everybody, then this is not even crime. This is just fundamental right. That is actually what is democracy. It's just instantaneous democracy. And say, look, we just discovered that we made a mistake and we don't want you. And he would walk from that swearing place back to his house. And a new political order will be established. And that is, like I said, what people are missing about democracy. You just think that the democracy is about elections alone. No. It's about your right to choose and stay with a particular political order. And that is exercised in different ways. That's why you have checks and balances. That's why you can have the legislative arm, you have the executive arm, you have the judicial arm. But the most powerful arm of a democratic government is the people. And they don't have a tenure. They don't have election cycles. The leaders don't get to elect the people they want to govern. The people get to elect the leaders they want. And get to decide if these are the kind of leaders you want to continue to rule you, or you want them to continue to ruin you. So that is the part of this conversation we are not having, or we have had, but we haven't had honestly. And I say it too because, sometimes I get to listen to radio shows in Abuja, Lagos, and you just see a lot of talking heads. They just come and repeat the same thing they told you yesterday because they are afraid to tackle the real issues. Some of them don't honestly know what the issues are, but they are good at talking about it. And then it gets worse when you hear telephone callers, come in and say, maybe you should go and solve a small problem somewhere. Go to the local government.
Go to the House of
Assembly. Yes. And but there's no great nation in the world that sends their best people to the House of Assembly and send their worst to the presidency. We have to reorder that mentality that the best should be president. And probably the worst should be in a place where it will have the least impact on our daily life. Because there's no question about it. Your president of Nigeria has the most amount of impact on you. That is how Nigeria is politically structured. In fact, it is how democratic orders are structured. The most important human being in the US today is the president of the US. Even though the power balance is kind of not skewed in favor of the president, that is why you can have governors rise up against him and defeat him, like they did in Minnesota. That's how you can have judges say, Mr. President, whatever it is you started on striking it down. And the president doesn't get to say, the judge doesn't know what he's doing. He has to respect that first. A judge cannot release a person in the US and the person says, no, I'm not releasing. No. The system is structured in such a way that the person who has to do the release know there are consequences if he doesn't carry out the order. He cannot go and say in front of the judge in the future that, oh, the president told me not to. No, it's not acceptable. You are personally responsible for carrying out the duties for which you have been paid by the public. So what I'm saying in essentially is that it is that mind shift that hasn't come to permeate. It happens spasmodically, occasionally, when young people rise up, or when there is general terrible, public opinion about what's going on. Sometimes leaders will say, what is against us? That is if they can hear you. Because sometimes there is a wall between the public and the governors and the governed. And it is called bureaucracy. And it is called, leaking of behinds, which is called psychophancy. We have heard that during Abacha's time, I think somebody was even saying it that during Buhari, his aides were printing newspapers.
The one they want him
to
read.
To see. But I don't think that anybody needs to print newspapers. That the newspapers are also doing a lot of damage to society. I'm using the word newspaper to represent the press, because the press is also an accomplice in a lot of ways. They don't, likely these days, you can get the press to report what is not happening correctly, whether you like it or not. But the only luck probably we have is the social media sector that is out there able to capture events as they're happening.
And put things straight.
And technology is helping. And now everybody has a radio station called Facebook Live. so you can broadcast whatever you want, and you don't need a radio license to do it. In fact, if you have a radio license, you still need to go on Facebook to be widely heard. So that sector has helped to grow the conversation. But also, it is volume that is difficult to see through. So, and now it is also a matrix, potpourri of a lot of things. Government is also now involved in throwing out hubris on social media.
Just go out there.
They also are growing their own people to misinform and disinform. Counter-narrative, trolling. When you put out that together, sometimes it just confuses. It takes then a higher level of consciousness to see through. It's a very bizarre time in nature.
Okay. Very interesting perspective to this question, because I was going to ask, if you found this out early enough, why is it difficult for, after years of consistently trying to make the people understand that these set of people you've constantly recycled are probably not taking us anywhere? Why is it difficult to get the right people to come on board with some of these ideas that you've been selling? I've had sessions with you while I was in Jos, virtually live in the studio. I've read things you've done, and you've had a consistent line of expression saying that you can be governed better.
Absolutely.
Why are the people not buying into this commercial, right?
You can ask the question of every society that has gone through where we are now. There is a lot of factors involved. The kind of attack that Nigerians went through to get us to where we are today, as unresponsive people, it didn't happen overnight. I'm saying the damage wasn't done overnight. If you want to damage the ability of the public to come together, one of the things you go after is education. So the moment you start ruining elementary education, secondary education, and then you get the universities and they're spellbound, you are essentially growing the kind of public that can be governed this way. Because instead of education, you are promoting ignorance. So instead of an educated populace, you will get literate but uneducated populace. Literate people can write very well. but they may not be able to reason. And I forgot this Brazilian or Argentinian poets who had put out this one funny. It's not funny. His saying was that he said his father was an army general who had defeated a lot of people in different wars. But when he retired, he said he came back and met his populace populated by idiots. And he said to himself, I'm scared now, even though I've fought a lot of wars. I've never been as scared as this. I'm very scared of idiots because in their large numbers, they can elect a president. Do you get my point? So, if you create very ignorant populace over time, in their large numbers, they can elect a president. And I don't want to deceive you, it has happened in many spheres in recent times. It's even true now for a lot of US citizens. I think they took their democracy for granted.
And now they're feeling it.
It was hijacked. And in large numbers, that population elected a president. But in their own case, it's a little better than ours. They're fighting back. They're fighting and getting results. For instance, they were able to fight Trump to a standstill in Minnesota. And now he's going to pull out his guns called ICE. They're fighting on a lot of fronts. But they still got a long way to go because while they were complacent, a lot was smuggled into their democracy. And their democracy is not looking like democracy anymore. Yes. They no longer have what they can call the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Even though when you check with a lot of people, even they're going to tell you things been going wrong, all along, and it's just a facade. And that it's now coming under the weight of this, dishonesty. That's another angle to it.
I'm worried. The reason that if you look at the population that we have, we're about 66.5% of our entire population are young people.
Yes.
Young people that have access to trends, that can dictate trends. Young people that can push agenda. Young people that can also, use the space that's the new media, the social media. A lot of them are influencers. They've got loads of people following them. But on the average, we have a lot of these people that don't exactly have deep knowledge of how to push the right leadership narrative. So we have these people tilting to one side today, leaning to this other side tomorrow, and these people have the numbers. Why are these individuals not keying into the idea of the fact that I have a platform? I can speak to the people to tell them how they can properly be governed, then they can ask questions. Why is it difficult to reach this set of individuals?
So part of it is what I just discussed with you earlier, that a social media influencer that has huge following is not a philosopher. So he's not pushing ideas that is going to liberate you. He's not going to make you wiser than you were. In fact, some of them you follow, you become more stupid than you were before you followed them. The other part of it is that it's incentivized, it's monetized. So it is the content that is driving the narrative. It's not the narrative that is driving the content. Narratives can drive content where there is public consciousness. That's why you might have someone like Malema in South Africa, followed by more young people, because his narrative they can connect with. It's not that his content is not the one drive. He doesn't have to, sit upside down or do something stupid to get people to follow him, because South Africans have a history of fighting oppression. They're coming from apartheid. Nigerians have not much history of fighting oppression. They are in apartheid without knowing that they're in apartheid. But that's
Nigerians.
Yes. Nigerians are treated worse than
South
black people were treated
back
under
then.
apartheid. Yes. I'm an example. I face it. There's still a policeman that is ready to kill you if you walk into the station, even if you are still Biko today in Nigeria. And I know this because My middle name is Steven. And policemen several times tried to kill me, even last year, in their cell, instructed by guys. And those kind of chilling experience, if you read it in Apartheid South Africa, you're like, wow, how did this happen? If you read Mandela's book or read Steve Biko's story, you're distant from it. But somebody who have had an experience, not me alone,
say it better.
they will tell you that, oh wow, Steve Biko was better treated than us in a police station. And I'm not talking about police stations that are, I'm talking about in Lagos. It is in South Africa, apartheid, that a police commissioner will declare an activist wanted and say, I don't want to see you around this area. It's only in apartheid South Africa. That's what I'm telling you, an apartheid, but you don't know it. Yes. These police commissioners are like African police commissioners of apartheid South Africa. They have areas you can't enter, places they think you can't protest, even though you're a citizen of your country. Places, I was restricted to Abuja for 3 years by a judge. Only in apartheid South Africa could somebody make such a ruling for a fellow citizen to say you can't leave Abuja because you are facing trial. That is after granting me bail. Granting me bail shows that I can't run anywhere. So why are you restricting me to Abuja at 25? A judge did it in this country. Then another problem we have is that I think our failure to teach history and worst failure to also document history is a problem, right? So everything that is happening in Nigeria, if it happened in America, there would be 5 movies about it. NSAS would have had like 6 movies. There would have been books written about it. Blockbuster would be a #1, New York bestseller. If a New York bestseller is written about NSAS, it will be written by a white guy who came to visit after the fire. You understand? Not by any of the participants. Even the participants want to rig what happened at NSAS, and insert people who didn't participate and say they are the leaders. So one thing about history is that they may not be honest, but it would exist. We don't have that. We don't have old history. We don't have contemporary history. And the worst way to start writing history is to be misreporting events as they are happening.
Okay, I decided to just touch this conversation from that side.
Yeah.
So now let's probably decide a lot of people want to talk about. Let's look at how our democracy over the years have not exactly been helped by the legislative arm of government, and this is why. The last 4, 5, 6 days have been centered around the mode of transmission, whether it's Section 60, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, this and that. And you made a statement, and that's where this conversation will come from, that 90% of the legislators that we have now will not return to their seats if things are done properly, if elections are conducted properly. When last week Wednesday, during the plenary, when that decision was made and the Senate President Godswill Akpabio read that decision in respect to the mode of transmission of the election, first off, how did you take it? Then the reaction that followed, how does that make you feel about how people are getting gradually aware of how they should be governed?
Let me respond to your first question.
Yes, please.
This is that 90% of them will not. I've changed my position since then. I think 99% of them will not have.
It's no longer 90%.
Yes. And I can tell you that under proper circumstances of transparent, free, fair, and democratic, credible election, even Akpabio would not have made it to this Senate. Because he never won his primaries. Primary elections in parties are the basis for electing people, or the basis for presenting candidates that then will compete finally. Lawan didn't win his primary. All these guys went through the back door and through judges to become candidates, and then eventually they rig their way in. That's what I meant. So if the Senate President himself couldn't have been, how would the rest of them have become senators and lawmakers? But that also applies to governors. It applies to the President of Nigeria today. I don't mince words in saying that Tinubu couldn't have become president of Nigeria if elections were free and fair in this country. All of us know that. And that is where the anger is coming from. It's not much of consciousness, it's not new consciousness. Transmission of election results have been here since the last electoral act was amended. They removed it knowing fully well that it was going to constitute a problem. And I made another statement during the protest that that is not even my preference, because transmitting election results that are already rigged is not taking you very far. But there are sometimes that people are so thirsty for water, they don't care whether the water is pure or clean or not. They just want to quench the thirst. And the thirst this time is for democracy. And it could also be a thirst for vengeance from the last election, the way they see it. That look at this, the way these guys messed up the election. But you should ask yourself, even elections that fulfill those conditions, they didn't give you the results you want. It's the reason why I am more on the side of electronic voting, the way they are doing in India. Why can't everybody vote from their personal devices? It takes away a lot of costs for preparation and voting. It takes away the danger inherent in even stepping out, and it takes away the ability to bribe people. Of course, the only argument against electronic voting is that it can be hijacked, it can be hacked into. But you have seen the hacking of your life. They've been hacking into your political life even before computers were invented. So they can do worse. But the advantage is that every individual will have a unique ID, a unique voter's number after voting. And you can save both to your text messages and a copy of your vote to your phone. Just like if I send you money from my device, from my app, and I send a message to you and say, hey, I already sent you money. You say, no, I haven't sent. What do I do next? I'm going to send you a copy of the transaction receipts. You don't call me back again. You go and look for your bank to be sure that, and if there's a problem, we resolve it. And you have less. But if I go to the bank and I receive physical cash from the bank, after I've queued up for a long time, if a few of the notes are removed, most likely you won't go back to the bank again. But nobody can actually remove money that you sent electronically. If you send 25,000 naira, the teller cannot take 1 naira out of it.
True.
So that's where we are in the world, and we should have caught up with the rest of the world. If you look at the thing they call beavers, go and Google beavers. It's almost Nigeria is almost the only country using beavers for elections at this time, because it was never even a popular, because it's a bimodal machine, and I'm sure some smart Alex just contrived, and they're looking for where to dump it, and Nigeria always receiving every. Go to India, they have electronic voting machines. They don't even transmit at the venue, but nobody doubts it because nobody can remove the chip. Take a look at my camera, my glasses. It was seized by the police, and they were moving it around. One, I was able to track it because they had a tracking device in there. Secondly, what made them give me back the camera was because it did not have external chips that they can remove and destroy. So they decided that let's just give him back his camera. What am I telling you is that the system has developed over time technology. And some people will tell you, oh, even America that has the best technology is not using electronic voting. Of course, America is using electronic voting. It just doesn't use it everywhere. Because elections in America is not organized by a central body known as INEC. It is organized by the secretary of every state. Election results in America is not announced by INEC. It's announced by the press. Go and find out. It is when there is a problem with tallying results that the Secretary of the State comes up and says, we're still tallying and they'll give you everything. But the reason why America can afford to do that is that America has got in this system, almost likely a foolproof system, to show that we can at least trust what the voters are saying and who is voting. And at any rate, we don't have to do everything America is doing wrong when we can do it right.
Okay. If we all agree that we need an improvement in our election, Commissioner, about 92% of the offices contested from the last election ended in courts, from the president.
That's
to
another
governor,
problem.
to Senate president.
Yeah. See, the judiciary should have no business in our elections. How do you conduct election for over, so from president to the last person? I think there are about 10,000 positions, and judges make decisions on the most important positions: governors and president. Most senators. Are you getting my point? Why? The reason is simple. It's because we decided that the elections are not going to be credible, and we open all kinds of avenues for fifth and sixth columnists to be tinkering with our elections. I think we should Google for ourselves how many court cases emerged from Indian elections with 900 million voters, registered voters, and how many of our own end up in litigation, and which we will be ashamed of ourselves. Even America, that has 250 million people, when they have disagreements, the courts will say, we don't want to be involved. For the presidential election, judges have almost an unwritten rule not to interfere with elections. But here, the judges are involved in party affairs. The judges are trying to decide who is the chairman of the party. They're trying to decide who wins primaries. They're trying to decide who is the candidate. And after the election, they're trying to decide who the real winner is. Judges. So 25 million people will vote, and 7 judges will sit and decide that the decision of 25 million people is not valid. And they will tell you that the judges have decided. That may be legal, but it's unlawful and unjust. And that is the part that we must get rid of. You see, part of why you're getting all this Electoral Act issue is because of judges and lawyers. Because any judge, and I can say that for almost all the judges who participate in election petition trial, that's how they become billionaires. Judges can kill to go and serve in election tribunal cases. You know, I'm a regular person in court. Whenever election litigation are on after election, you can't get your cases heard because the judges are in tribunals, in different tribunal lungus across the country, and money is moving around. Because what you see with the Electoral Act is to create this loophole that judges. So, but if you say it's mandatory, it's going to be difficult for judges to say it is, because that becomes a constitutional provision. You can't override that easily. But the moment you start putting shall or may, then the devil
then the decision becomes
the determinant of the details. That's the problem.
And realizing that these are the problems, what steps are the most appropriate? I know for one that you probably would have said a lot of things you would say at different times, and trust Nigerians would always want to come back and hear the same thing over and over again. We know very well that the whole idea of bringing technologies into election is not just a win for tech. It's a win for a transparent election. It's a win to further deepen the fiber of our democracy, which is very important. Why do you think the people, I mean, say the authorities, or let me say, the elites, the political elite, are against this whole idea?
Let me tell you, which is something that will shock you. as far back as 1978, 79. Awolowo and the UPN people have trackers for ballot boxes. Yes. That was how he was able to win the popular vote, and then they had to use the courts to say, oh, he didn't win in 12 to 3rd majority. Because Awolowo clearly won the presidency in 1979. It was this same judiciary that was used in the middle of the game to change the rules. So people just make it sound like technology just came now. Technology has been around for a long time. How many candidates you see today that can afford to use helicopters to campaign? Awolowo was using helicopter to throw flyers in northern Nigeria. And to scare him away, they said he was looking at their wives and their compounds naked. So it's nothing new. But we've gotten to the point where technology has become a part of our lives. Undeniably. Technology is no longer something that is existing in what Yoruba has called the sacred group, Igboro. No, now everybody has technology. There was a time in this country the mobile phone was called not 9 knots. Only a few people had it. If you had one, it's in a big suitcase. You had to hire somebody to carry it. That's how heavy it was. But look at cell phones now. They're all over the place. I arrived at the US when the first camera phone came out. It was, we used to photo of Motorola, and I couldn't believe it. But even then, if you took your picture, it wasn't clear. But now, if you go and buy an expensive camera in the movie industry, you are wasting your money.
Because your phone
you can make a movie at 4K, 8K with your phone. And it's just arriving. They keep making them every day. So that means that you have no excuse. And the people who are telling you that you need to take it slow, they are not taking it slow with technology. They are building mansions that they use their hands to enter. They don't even light their stoves anymore. They just put their hand over their kitchen stove and the light comes on. And when they clap, it's off. They don't flush their toilets anymore. They are embracing technology. They're using it to better their own lives. But when it comes to the people, they say, oh, no, please don't bring technology near us. We don't have network. How is it that you're able to make calls from 30,000 feet in private jets, and you can't provide network in 8 states for election for just one day? It's not true. They are doing it deliberately. Because what people don't also understand these days, and that's where it becomes ideological forming. This is class war.
It's classism.
It is. It's a war, it's a raging war against the poor. It's to keep the poor poorer and poorer. Because they know that if the poor have power, they will live better lives, and the rich will not be able to oppress them.
And the poor can make better decisions.
I was driving behind a guy on my way here, and he was in a RAV4 with a driver driving. And I was asking myself, if you're driving a RAV4 Toyota, what do you need a driver for? You understand? What's the big deal? It's class mentality, because you still have to sit at the back of that car just to feel good about yourself. If you have a RAV4, for God's sake. But if you're living in the US, you can't even afford a driver, because the driver works for 8 hours, and you must pay them for extra hours at work, and you have to get them insurance and all kinds of things. By the time you think of it, and you have to get the car insurance as well.
You drive yourself.
You can't even drive yourself, because then you have to deal with, petrol prices. You look at all this and say, you just walk yourself and wait for the train to take you. But the important thing is that the trains are there. You have multiplicity of options to take a train. From where I live in New Jersey, I can go by train, I can go by bus to New York City. I can take a bike, there's a bike route. I can take Uber, and I can drive myself. But when I consider the cost of parking my car in New York, which is not less than $100 for a whole day, then it will make sense to spend $15 to go and come back home and be humble.
You'll be humble.
Yes, you'll be humble. Right? That's how our society ought to be. But it is in those kind of society that people will not greet you because you are wearing an expensive suit. They don't see it. That's not status for them. They don't greet you because you are driving a Rolls Royce. Because their own Rolls Royce may just be a skater roller that is taking them to work. Their own quality of life is not defined by
how many cars you have, how many houses you have. It's
the quality of the air they breathe, the neighborhood where their children can go to school that is safe, the quality of their vacation. You know, you ask the average Nigerian worker, have you ever been on vacation before? They'll be looking at you like, are you mad?
Vacation to where?
To where?
What are we vacating from?
If I vacate for 1 month,
I will vacate the job.
Will my job still be available? On a serious note, that is what would have happened if the society is working for everybody. And that's what we must never take for granted and considering the way forward. I tell people, you are not doing me a favor if you have better government in this country. No, I'm not. I'll be the least favored because I think I've already lived some great life. So there's nothing Nigeria is going to provide me now, even if Nigeria turns Eldorado over there that I haven't seen about 50% of, or leave the 50% of. No. But I would be lying to you if I would say that I don't want in Nigeria that gives my family members, friends, or people I don't know. You know. That's the reason why you see me sometimes. I go to police station to bail people I don't know because somebody sent me a message from Facebook. And the police DPO is always, Mr. Sowore, why can't you let them? These ones, they don't belong to the people we should care about. But that's the people we should care about. Because how can you go to sleep knowing that an injustice has been done to another person? I'm more upset about the guy who is sleeping in a police station overnight. You understand? Who hasn't done anything than even myself sleeping in a police station. Because even though I know I haven't done anything wrong,
at least,
but I know I've done something. Because I know I get on the announce every day. So it hurts me to hear from somebody, you know, there was a guy who says this Okada, and the guy said, look, if I don't give it to me, I'm just going to kill myself. So when I called the DPO and I said, give this guy Okada, are you sure you are the show, right? How could you be calling people out of the car? It's different if we see somebody's private jet, then we will understand this call. I said, those are the people that matter. You know? Because those are the people who get the job done to keep this country going. And they're the people who would never get a vacation in their lifetime, except the physics country.
Comrade Sowore, let's talk about the 2027 election. It's very clear. We can't deny the fact that the bulk of the election conversation will be in 2026. The primaries, the convention, the congresses, the nomination, the campaigns, whether it's propaganda or manifesto, whichever one they choose to call it, all of those conversations would most likely be in 2026. We're going to talk about you much later, but the coalition itself, and maybe the opposition, and you look at where the PDP is right now, as at this time last year, they had about 14 governors. Give and take now, maybe just 4. Adamawa, Oyo, Bauchi, Zamfara, about 9 of the other governors of Rivers, Akwa Ibom, Edo, all of them have gone to the Ruling All Progressive Congress. You look at the National Assembly, for instance, about 81 senators out of 109. That is absolute majority. About 246 out of 360 reps members are all in the All Progressive Congress. Then you look at the AADC, you look at the people at the AADC, former governors, former ministers, former speakers, also building up the coalition in that space. Then there's the Labour Party, a lot of inconsistency around their leadership structure. Where are we in terms of political organization ahead of the 2027 election? Do you think we can actually make any difference, a little departure from what we had in 2023?
You know, I wish in walking into this place, I just play my old conversations with you. And I'm talking about even at the times that it was difficult to have certain political conversations. I typically come here to talk about it. And the reason I'm saying so is that we are making calculations and extrapolations that do not count in bettering our lives, in the political scenarios that will change anything. And that is why I have never want to be part of people who discuss coalitions, who discuss Labour Party, you know. And this takes me back to youth. When I talk about young people earlier, it was almost a taboo to discuss Labour Party in 2022. And I was telling them, I was like, this is just going to be a train wreck. Nobody listened. Because you can't build something on nothing. These guys, I know them well enough to know that this is just unnecessary excitement. But it was content that was driving narrative at that time too. And a lot of influencers. It was how they built their content base. It was how they got paid by social media platforms. And for me, it was how I got banned or shadow banned. So
you were actually a lot of times.
yes. So I mean, Facebook had me in a chokehold since 2019, always threatening to take down my account. They did recently because I am not in a game of popular discourse. I make unpopular declarations, but they come to pass, and I go back to 2027 as we're discussing it. If we are not very careful, in fact, elections might happen in November. That's not part of their plans. Part of the new electoral act stipulates that we only need 180 days declaration before the election. And the reason that was inserted in the electoral act version of draft they have now is because they want to do election in November. With that and all these things were put together, it will be overwhelming to an average Nigerian. Like, this is meant to make you throw up your hands and like no hope. But it's also enough time for anybody who is very smart to start making those very important decisions and taking important positions, no matter how inconvenient now. That 36 governors are only 36 people. If you add their deputies, you add all the National Assembly, there are only 10,000 people. There are now over 93 million registered voters. By the way, 2022, the 2023 election had the lowest voter participation in history. 28% of registered voters voted. Lowest since almost in the election history in the country, or since the advent of democracy in 1999. And if this trajectory and the conversation we're having now persists, there will be less than 10% participation. There will be 93 million voters registered.
Maybe less than 10 million voters.
If 15 million vote, and we'll be saying that's a lot. Because you're already seeing the signs of how many people voted in governorship elections off season. People are no longer voting because they have lost hope in the electoral process. But interestingly, Nigerians are still very interested in democracy. I think there is something about democracy that gives your personal ego a boost. Even no matter how false it is.
You feel like at least we are still doing democracy.
That I can elect my own idiot. So, but there's also a part of it that the operators of the democratic scam have devised that has instant gratification and things we call stomach infrastructure. If you go to the rural areas, there are sometimes that the first time anybody ever got 5,000 naira in a year
was during election.
So how do you preach to this kind of people? But there's hopefully a great consciousness with what is happening with the electoral act and how people are reacting. And maybe something will happen. One that I would say last about the Nigerian political system that's a little bit of a puzzle to me is that there's always something that happens before that upset the apple cart. And we just wake up and say, oh my God, we thought this was a decision 3 months ago. And sometimes it's like somebody dies unexpectedly, or some political calculations
goes wrong.
Or there's an uprising. Because if you look at the seismic political changes that took place in 2015, it was preceded by Occupy Nigeria. And then SARS was a major factor
in the 2023 election.
Problem being that though these uprisings have not yielded the necessary result, because when uprising is not properly processed after the uprising by upright people, you get terrible results. So that's the thing. It happens from also citizen confidence. So, for instance, we talk about the youth constituency. We talk about the youth demography. It has not become a constituency until it becomes a constituency where the young people are speaking the same language, and the politicians are hearing them loud enough to say, "Wow,
we have to do something."
40 million people are about to vote against us. It changes the game. Even the cacophony alone of we are going in a different direction
is enough to check things.
Yes. And one thing I want to tell people, because I know a lot of people are listening to us, about being an influencer, and I tell that to members of our movement, is that there's nothing special about an influencer. An influencer is a guy who started growing his followership with content. So you too become an influencer, and one day you discover that there will be more influencers with consciousness than those who have no consciousness. And the one without consciousness will have to bow to the reason towards consciousness. But there is still some kind of liturgy by people with political consciousness. A lot of them still believe in analog ways of activism. You know, I know people who used to challenge me. Yes, like, what's wrong with you? Rely on Facebook, and they used to argue that me, I can never be on Facebook.
Why are they now?
You know, wait until your wife divorces you on Facebook. You will know that you need an account. So, but on a serious note, you can't ignore any platform that spreads information. I tell people, when you see the US government and the embassies, the most important aspect of the embassies and consulates is collection of information. Even when they're interviewing you for visa, they're collecting information from you, they're checking on your background. And this information is sent back on a daily basis. The US embassy is like a newspaper, it's like a newsroom. They're sending economic information back to their country, and it's helping their leaders to take decisions on how to control the world. Because they want to put a shirt on your back. They want to be the one selling your shampoo to you. They want to be the one growing the weeds and using WTO to sell it to you so that you get their bread. Yeah, they want to be the one supplying your sugar, your tea, you know. So think about it. They don't want putting a cell phone device in your ears, even though the quota was taken from your backyard. Now they're the ones who want to make the battery that's going to power how you drive or fly. So they need information from you, but we think we don't need information here. We do.
Sowore, 2019 you were on the ballot.
Yes.
2023 you were on the ballot.
Yes.
I would pay $1 million for an exclusive from you right now. What are we expecting in 2027?
Why don't you give me $1 million first?
If I have it, I'd rather take it from you.
No, I see. One thing I've always stated and told people is that when I got involved in partisan politics, I went around the country of Nigeria and outside Nigeria looking for a political party to join, and couldn't find one, even though in those days there were over 90. There were 80 political parties, and then there were over 90 political parties everywhere. And I almost passed all of them except PDP, and in 2019 when that comes to ask them to join, evil people. But we didn't set up our own political party. It's gone through the cycle. But what I want to tell you is that decisions as to who is fielded for office is taken by political parties. And I know people like to say, oh, Sowore is the alter ego of this political party. It's still a political party. And there is a process for organizing primaries to four people you might, even if it is by consensus. So I can tell you today that I'm going to be a contestant in the next election.
But your political party says no?
They have to decide. But most importantly, I don't live my life around political calendars. I say this all the time. I'm not a politician that waits for 4 years, I'm always constantly running. And that's more important to me than the declaration that we are waiting for today. If I'm going to run, of course, you'll find out. You'll probably want to be one of the first to find out. How about I show you? Yes. But I'm more grounded than anybody who can just flippantly be talking about, yes. I know in 2019 I said that I want to run. But I don't need to prove to you anymore that I can run for president. So this time around, let's plan and see what the country wants for the future.
Okay.
And let me be one of the drivers for it.
Well, the phone lines have been buzzing. Messages everywhere. If you're just joining us, I have Comrade Sowore live with us in the studio. I think is one person I can be so sure of that. No matter how short the notice is, when I reach out to him, let's have a conversation, he's always making himself available. And people always ask me, how is your marriage? I always see Sowore, I always bring, and I'm like, he's a comrade now. And then I think it's part of those things he signed up for. And we've had a very engaging conversation on the show today. We've talked about the digitization of our election. We talked about our social conversation. We talked about the leadership structure that we have in this country. We've talked about how the legislative arm of government has constantly, questioned where they stand in their role in deepening our democracy. So if you missed this session, you've got to go back to our social media platforms. Facebook.com/Mainland98.3FM and on YouTube, same search, and also on Radio Garden. We're streaming live on all of those platforms, and let me allow you to join us. Okay, 0913-600-0410. Please, let's keep our contribution very brief. Leave all of the protocol. Just tell me your name and your contribution, and I will go on from there. 0913-600-0410 on direct call. 0913-600-0410 on WhatsApp call. Let's have a conversation. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Mainland FM.
Good evening, Sowore.
You're welcome.
Honestly, I love you. From each time I listen to you from beginning to end, you are the kind of voices I want to hear. And there are two of you, presidential candidates. I'm not talking of politicians that I love in this country. You are bold and you are straight away. The other person is Peter Obi, and I will tell you why. He is somebody that the EFCC has not been able to find anything again. But Sowore, I discovered that even the Peter Obi, if I'm correct, you don't seem to like him, if I'm correct. So I want to ask why. Does it mean that you have anything against him as a politician, or it's just that you just want to be alone? Because when I look at you, I see a Ganipa Wahimi of those days. The man is always fighting for the man. And I want to tell you that I can vote for you, and I can vote for the South. I love you, Sowore.
Thank you, Pastor.
So, and what you are doing, God will help you. They will not get you. Your enemies will not get you by the grace of God.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pastor. 0913-600-0410. Hello, who do we have on the line? Hello.
Good evening, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Mr. Sowore, good evening, sir. My name is Robert. I am calling you from Papa. Mr. Sowore, two questions that I want to ask you about. What is your view about the corruption crusade being championed by this government? Also, that 230 billion is missing, and Ndulari cannot, let me say, the NNPC cannot tell us the whereabouts of that money. Do you think that money can be recovered? That is one. Secondly, sir, the insecurity bedeviling Nigeria, where some group of people that call themselves terrorists are killing people. I think that even animal cannot be killed like that. What do you think can be? What do you think will be the solution of this insecurity? Do you think this government can fight insecurity to a standstill? This Bola Tinubu government. That's my question. Thank you, Above.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. We'll pick the calls, and then I'm sure Comrade Sowore will respond to all of them as we go on with the conversation. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Barrister Peter Oko, is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
God bless you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
We're fine, we're good.
Okay, you're with Honorable Sowore today.
Yeah, we're with Comrade Sowore.
To hear from him. Because he's
Barrister Peter Oko, I think you try and call back. I would really appreciate if you can. 09136000410. We'll also have to read the messages that we have on our social media platforms, facebook.com/Mainland98.3FM. Okay, let's read some of the messages we have here. Good evening to you, Okwe, and to Mr. Sowore, your guest. Tonight, he said it all. The problem of Nigeria is the masses. We're waiting for Ghana to come back from the grave to fight for us, which can never happen. Today, we're sitting here and calling President Trump from America to come and rescue us. Until we rise to say enough is enough for all of these things that we're complaining about, we'll keep lamenting and lamenting till the kingdom come. Sowore, keep pushing. One day you certainly get there. Thank you very much. Okay, this one says, good evening to you, Okwe. I've always looked forward to this program, and I'm glad you brought Comrade Sowore to us in the studio today. The conversation around 2027 election has gone to the point where Nigerians would have to hold their future by their hands. And when you have people like this on the ballot, we still choose to go for the money bags. Whether we like it or not, this country will be good, and it is our responsibility to make sure it gets better. Thank you. That is Festus from Ikorodu. Good evening, Okwe, and my greetings to Comrade Sowore. In fact, Sowore, you are God sent, and I appreciate the way you dissected the whole issue today on Nigeria's politics and the way forward. Aluta continua. God bless you. That is Chris from Ikeja. Thank you very much. Hello, can you hear me? Good evening to you. Okay. We got a bit late. We also have messages on Facebook, so we'll read the messages and I will pick your calls in between the program. Okay. Hello, good evening. Try and call back if you still can. I'm really hoping we can, get all of this. A lot of people are trying to laugh off the show. Comrade Sowore, please. Please kindly tell Sowore to become the chairman of EFCC. Okay. I'm sure he's listening to that. Hello, good evening to you. Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you join us. Your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Shola. I'm calling from Sowore. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shola.
Yeah, good evening. I personally like Mr. Sowore. And I pray. Even I want you to just, I don't know, I just want him to climb the place and become the president of this country. But that's one. Option one. Then option B, I purposely want him to become the EFCC chairman. Honestly, just, I know that if Mr. Sowore should be the president of this country, I know the first is possible. Just a bit more what is it called? This national call paper. So I used to follow him, yeah, and I pray that God will be with him and God will guide him all this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shola, for joining us on the show today. 09136000410. If you join us late, well, I've been speaking with Comrade Sowore, the 2019 and 2023 presidential candidate of the African Action Congress. Let's pick the calls. Hello, good evening to you. Welcome to Mainland98.3FM. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Whatever is wrong with this line, we'll try and work something out. Hello, good evening. You're welcome. Your name and where are you calling from? Good to have you join us.
Thank you. Comrade, I salute you. I just want to ask a question. I'll be very, very happy the kind of question that one of the previous callers asked, comrade, that the issue of insecurity, the issue of corruption, the second one, the issue of our electoral processes, that someone has asked, comrade, that if eventually becomes the president, how is he going to win this election? And again, why not comrade Sowore join the APC and keep his job till he gets what he wants from them, and he now bring out his own blueprint? This is only way, because if you continue telling from outside, your arm may not get to that top, and by the time you must have get to that top, age might not allow you to perform all this your action. Now why not just join it and keep your blueprint? Then when you now get to the top, you now bring out your blueprint, then you start using it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Alaba, for joining us on the show today. More messages. This one says, good evening to you, Mainland FM. The situation of the country can only get better when we have individuals speaking truth to power like Comrade Sowore does. I follow him on social media, and sometimes I wonder if he's not scared for his life. But he's a comrade. He would always find a way to get things done. That is Ayola from Ijai. Okay. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, bro.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for picking my call. Comrade, I salute you. This is David Joshua.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I want to ask the comrade. See, to me personally, I think one of the best ways to change anything in government, is to look for a way to win an election. See, Comrade Sowore, I sincerely respect you, but then, how do you intend to win an election with these smaller parties? You know, you don't want to belong, or you don't want to be part of some of all these giant parties. How do you intend to win an election, and how do you intend to change the society for better with your great plan? If at all you don't even have the opportunity to win an election, how about sharing your ideas with the bigger parties? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Gege Joshua, for joining us on the show. Comrade, would you want to respond to a couple of the questions, or we just keep
Well, there are so many of the questions I get all the time, so many of the questions I've treated, and the questions that are very interesting is the question I ask all the time that why didn't you like Peter Obi? And but I've made it very clear that Peter Obi is not the only person I don't identify with within the political class. My position is that anybody who has been governor of a state, local government chairman, senator, president in this country, who hasn't delivered up to the standard that all of you who are calling said we should have, I have no meeting points between me and them. Some people say they have lesser evil. There's no lesser evil in my books. It's if you are either good or bad, because the country has experienced so much evil from these people. And he made allusion to the fact that the FCC has never investigated Obi before I found him. Tinubu can make the same argument. Tinubu has never been arrested by the FCC before. When he was arrested, he was tried by the Code of Conduct Bureau. And I will tell you the reason why Tinubu wasn't arrested by the EFCC. The EFCC started in Lagos, and Tinubu was smart enough, quote unquote, to capture the EFCC, support them since the beginning. You look at the caseload of the EFCC in Lagos, you really find a Lagos state official arrested by. There has never been a case of the arrest and the trial of a former Lagos governor or a serving Lagos governor by the EFCC. It is an unwritten rule that the EFCC don't touch Lagos state officials, and Lagos state has the worst corruption in the nation because they make the biggest amount of revenue and they steal the most. The only time the EFCC was ever brought before to deal with the former governor was Ambode, and it was because he fell out with his godfathers. Because the godfather of Ambode is also the godfather of EFCC, and now the owner of EFCC. So anybody using EFCC as a yardstick for judging who is corrupt and not corrupt is that's not proper judgment. But the other issue about security is this, and I've also trashed this many times. You can never end insecurity when you have people who profit from insecurity, who are in charge of fighting insecurity. All these army generals, you see, police commissioners, IGP, they are not in the business of fighting insecurity. They are in the business of profiting from insecurity. And we started having this problem when they became more interested in procurement than they were interested in doing their jobs. So if you go to Abuja now, likely if you see any new estate is built by army generals who are profiting from insecurity, it's built by police IGs, police commissioners who have made a lot of money. So you are not going to fight this insecurity, but the question is, what's my own solution to it? And it also extends to the EFCC because of those who always mock themselves by saying I should go and become EFCC chairman. If you are the president of Nigeria, you are automatically the chairman of EFCC. You are the chief of army staff. You are the IG of police. You are the controller general of customs. That's what they call the commander of the armed forces. The EFCC might be a quasi or paramilitary organization, but it's armed. So you are the commander. And if you are so interested in my becoming EFCC chairman, I might combine the position with that of the president. Every president in this country is also the minister of petroleum. Already I wanted to be the Minister of Education in addition to or Minister of Works because I have so much energy. I could combine like 3 ministries. This time around, based on your suggestion, I'm the chairman of the FCC to my position as. What I'm trying to tell you is that the president has overall powers. If I'm the chairman of the FCC today and I go arrest the wrong person, the president will kick me out by tomorrow morning. You will never hear of me again. Or they will claim that I was trying to blackmail somebody and the person didn't give. They will plant evidence. Before you find out that it's not true, you're gone. I'm gone. So anybody that will be at the mercy of another person is not. But again, that is part of what I was telling you about the quality of narrative consciousness. You can't blame our people who feel this way. But if you are conscious, you know that the most important person at this time is the president. So if you want to elect somebody, don't tell the person that, oh, you are from a smaller party. There's no small party. All parties are equal. We are all registered the same way. We have the same power. You cannot. And those of you who went and joined Labour Party in 2023, didn't you make it big, according to you? So, and you have left the Labour Party. All of you that are homeless, come to our party. Those of you who are partyless, come to our party. Those of you who are not happy wherever you are, come for salvation. Our party is there. The AAC can take as many, we can take all the 93 million registered voters as our members. And most importantly, you can register online. You don't have to know anybody to be a member. Nobody needs, you don't need to go and swear an oath inside one shrine before you become a member of our party. You don't have to join a cult. You don't have to swear allegiance to a godfather or godmother or a godson or goddaughter. So join the party. If you all of you join the party tomorrow, and we wake up tomorrow and there are even 10 million members who have joined AAC, the conversation will change. But you know that all of you are always asking for Ganifa Wemi, you know. But the fact is that ask your parents who knew Ganifa Wemi. Ganifa Wemi ran for president. You did not vote for him. But now you are missing him. And every time I go around and say, you are the new Ganifa, I can't fit into Gani's shoes. It's too big for me. But if you see any flicker of my characteristics that shows that, and you want that person to be in government, what are you waiting for? You don't need the permission of the big parties to join a small party. In fact, it is an anathema to call a party small party. There is no party that is registered small or big. The big parties claim they are big based on how many offices they have succeeded in capturing. either legitimately or illegitimately. So you have someone like me, you can relate with me. We have a party. Join this party en masse. And when we join the party en masse, you are going to you become a revolutionary who is displacing the old order. They will be crumbling right in front of you. Suddenly you discover that the principalities that used to exist don't exist no more. As the Christians say, join the party of the Pharaoh that knows no Joseph.
Commissioner, there's something that is pretty critical in the last few months. It's happened over the years repeatedly, but it looks like the last few months have been maybe taking a different dimension. I've been at Oroshoki repeatedly in the last 2 months. There was a time I was there and I got caught up in the ring right there when I was, fielding a report. And I saw little kids just hiding under demolished shanties. Obviously not having an idea of where they are going to from here. From Morocco to Makoko to Oroshoki. What do you make of this? A lot of people think it's an institutionalized way of depriving people what you should legitimately provide for them. What do you make of that, Commissioner?
What would interest you is what I said earlier about Nigerians living in a state of apartheid that they're in denial of. You understand? It's class war, class warfare, outright class warfare. That when they were coming after Morocco, it was the same thing they said. Oh, it's a shanty, we want to develop the city, and they drove them to somewhere and built some houses for them. Some 40 years later, they have gone to that place to also demolish the place. The people who used to be in Morocco. And what used to be Morocco is now where we call Banana Island plus all the things in that area. So what could be the piece of land in Oroshoki that's so important that if you want to build and you have so much money, you can't reclaim the Atlantic Ocean now? What do you need that place for? What you could have done is to transform the place. Amsterdam, that you know of today, that everybody is hearing about, used to be a shanty on top of water. And then the visionary later came and built dikes, to divert water from the swamp, to drain the swamp and build on it. So you can turn Oroshoki to Amsterdam. You can build schools in Makoko by building even wooden bridges. You can turn the place and still leave it for them. In fact, the world will see that as a heritage site, a place transition from shantyhood to neighborhood. But it is that they must constantly wage war against the poor. That is why it is where the poor is that is always prime land for the rich, the connected, and the politically powerful. There's something in their DNA that just hates to see poor people. I'm sure every time they pass the Mainland Bridge,
they don't just like the sight of
they
that.
just like, one day they're coming after you. And look at, before then there was Otobo. And these places have historical relevances. Those places are owned by people who have used the place to build wealth, build community, build culture, and build history. My father used to come to Lagos to sell timber at Makoko from Ondo State. So a lot of people that you see in Makoko are mostly Lajes and people from our area in Ondo State. And you come one day, that it's the only place you want to demolish is their place. But you have land in Lagos that's undeveloped, that you could acquire, that don't need you to drive anybody away. And you can invest in those neighborhoods if you have humanity at the heart of governance to turn them around. In fact, you can make it a multi-income or bi-income community where the rich cohabits with the poor. But the rich in Nigeria hates the poor with passion. And I think the rich that hates the poor with passion are the poor who used to be poor, who are now rich. I think they have something, and then like, whenever they see posts, like I
It
always
reminds them of
it
where
reminds
it's
them of
coming
their
from.
part, and then they just because otherwise, what is it that you need that you can't find to build elsewhere?
It has to be.
It has
these
to be
places,
the
these
home of the
communities.
poor. You know, do you know how many people? How many of these people have died? The CP of police was targeting me when I went there in October. He wanted the a killer squad to go and shoot at me there because I went there too. So when you now see that people are conscious about this, you could have. We have been fighting in Shoki for so long. Our party, our movement. That's why, it irks me when I hear people make calls and say, we've undertaken some of the most dangerous courses in this country for ourselves and for you on your behalf, even without you knowing. But you're asking us to kowtow and subsume our intellect, our integrity, under those of the people who have always hated and oppressed you. There must be something wrong somewhere. Hope people fix it. So, but that's the sad part. But we say to them, they shouldn't give up, and we won't give up on our behalf, on their behalf. We'll keep fighting until they reclaim both their land and dignity. So if you are buying land in all those places, you are hearing me. You are the ones who is renting. The owner of the land will someday take it back.
Thank you very much. Big shout out to everyone that have joined the conversation today. Thank you so much, Comrade Sowore, for always finding time. I know, maybe some people will fall in love with freedom on Saturday, right? You're up to something, right?
We have an event in Lagos where we're inviting people on Valentine's Day to come and discuss freedom and fall in love with freedom as opposed to falling in love with. You're entitled to fall in love with anybody you want, but we think it's better to fall in love with freedom. So we have an outing in Ikeja. And I've been told as I arrive in Lagos that the CP of Lagos is already scoping the place. I'm happy that he's scoping the place. We welcome him and his boys whenever we're there. Anyway,
Thank you so much.